Lokati here. Today we're going to be going over our Cyclone Slayer. Cyclone is getting some small buffs, so the build will obviously perform a little bit better in the new league than it's performing here. This build is also still slightly optimized towards mercenaries, and we're not using a mercenary at all. So obviously it is going to be built a little bit differently in the new league without the access to mercenaries. But let's fire up a T16 map with breaches, manias, paranoias. This would be a typical Delhi orb farm map on T16 in the previous league. Playstyle on Cyclone is fairly straightforward. Use Cyclone, things die. So you're just going to be cycloning through the map. We do run a lot of move speed on the build, so you are going to be zooming through the map. If you want to amp your damage, you'll periodically be casting Vol Smite, and that's going to give you a big burst of damage. And that buff will stay on you for about 12 seconds, and then you'll Vol Smite again after 12 seconds are up. As you can see, the build just kind of rips through everything fairly easily. We are running anywhere between 5 and 60 million DPS, depending on your gear and your budget on Cyclone. We have kind of a mid-tier investment on size on Cyclone right now. You can get a much larger Cyclone than this one, but we are keeping everything kind of mid-tier on budget, mid-tier on gear, etc., to give you an idea of what the build feels like. Playstyle is super fun. You can add in explosions if you want to. Devastator Cluster Jewels and an Orias in Bismuth Flask are both great choices for adding in explosions to the build. But as with all Cyclone builds, you'll just kind of zoom along. Now, one thing that is a problem with most Cyclone builds aren't tanky. And tankiness is important to me. So we do put a lot of emphasis on the ability for you to find a group of mobs and get in here and then just like answer your phone or get some coffee or maybe deal with the kids and come back to not a dead guy. We make sure that all of our builds are very, very tanky. They can survive most anything in the game outside of one-shots. They have tremendous amounts of recovery, tremendous amounts of damage, and Slayer is just so much fun. You'll have much more recovery on Slayer when you're actually attacking than you do whenever you are standing there. But it's a good build, solid fun, and probably one of the best mappers out there. So let's go ahead and take a look at the POB. Now for the POB, we have this set up in an early budget, a mid budget, and a high budget. In the early budget, you're going to focus on a weapon like Rebuke of the Vol. You could also use high Aeons or any other high elemental damage sword. These are typically pretty cheap. Next, you're going to want to set a Dark Ray Vectors for the move speed, frenzy charges, and resistances. These are just a good set of boots that are usually 1 chaos. You can usually pick up a Carnage Heart for a chaos. Get a good Praxis Power to help offset the mana cost of Cyclone. And then as soon as you can, get a Taming. The stats on it don't really matter. Just a single taming with some set of stats on it is going to be really, really strong for scaling your character. Outside of that, you're going to be running rares that have an assorted amount of stats to help cap your resistances, get some life, get some other defenses, get accuracy, things like that. And then for our jewels, we're just going to run rare jewels that have life and some sort of beneficial offensive stat on them. For our skills, we're running Cyclone with Trinity, Ice Bite, Elemental Damage with Attacks, Fortify, and if you have a 6-link Infused Channeling. It is important to note that we use both Ice Bite and Vol Smite to make sure that Cyclone can alternate between Lightning and Cold to deal enough of each element to maintain all of our Trinity stacks. So you are using both Vol Smite and Smite as well as Ice Bite on Cyclone to do that. For auras, we're running Determination and Skitterbots. Since we are a precise technique build, we're running Poacher's Mark with Mark on Hit and Blood Rage, and then Leap Slam or Shield Charge or Flame Dash or whatever other mobility you want to add into the build. For our passive tree, we are moving down towards Bravery and Art of the Gladiator, then over here to Gladiator's Perseverance and Weathered Hunter for our accuracy. We're also picking up accuracy under Acuity here so that we can maintain enough accuracy for precise technique. Make sure that your main hand accuracy is above your total life. This is going to be important because precise technique is 40% more attack damage, which is huge for our build. Outside of that, we are taking Sword Mastery with Blade Dancer and Attack Mastery with Assured Strike for very large cyclones. We are taking both Disciple of Slaughter and Anointing Disciple of Unyielding to maintain some extra scaling on our charges. With a 3% charge mastery, we're taking Testudo and Deflection for block, and then we're taking life here, life here, life here, and life here for survivability. Now you do need to come over here and take 1 point in rage on hit to maintain rage while you're cycloning. Once you get into the mid and the high budget builds, that's built into the lethal pride here. We are taking Entrench and Inveterate for spell suppression. And because we don't have very high budget gear, we are using Spell Suppression Mastery for lucky spell suppression. This is just a temporary way to bolster our defenses until we get access to spell suppression on our gear. Now, over here, we're taking a jewel socket here, a jewel socket here, and a jewel socket here. And in the low budget version of the build, we're coming in and taking Elemental Mastery with Forces of Nature and Revenge of the Hunted for some extra defenses as well. Once you move over to the mid-budget version of the build, you're going to be focusing more on a Tri-Ellie sword that is crit-based, another shield that's going to have good defenses on it. But the most important piece of armor that you're going to be shifting to is going to be your Cyclone armor. Now, making your first Cyclone armor, which is just this base, is very simple. You get a Warlord's item, you reforge attacks on your Harvest bench until you have socketed attacks have a total mana cost. You get a Hunter armor, you reforge attacks until you have critical strike chance. You smash both of these together, and then you suffixes cannot be changed, reforge caster with closed suffixes on the build, and it'll guarantee that you can apply an additional curse. There are many guides on crafting Cyclone armor out there. The first one is very, very simple, and we'll make some more guides in regards to crafting as the league progresses. But the first thing you're going to want to get is a Cyclone armor. This will relieve you from having to run Praxis Power, allow you to get a Winter Weave and an Archon's Tools for a reverse chill, and then the rest of your gear are just going to be better versions of what you had before. We are going to move down and take a Murderous Eye Jewel so that we can get some accuracy and flat elemental damage, which we'll need. Our Cluster Jewel is going to be Calamitous, Feed the Fury, and Martial Prowess. You could run Martial Prowess, Devastator, and Calamitous instead if you wanted to add some explosions in here. We are getting a Lethal Pride, which is solving our rage concerns and increasing our damage. To find the right Lethal Pride, all of the nodes are in here already. All you do is come into here and hit search, and all of these are good Lethal Prides. Every one of these is going to be good for your character. The ones at the top just happen to be better than the ones lower down the list. And so you don't have to do anything special to find one of those. It's already built in the spreadsheet. We are also running a Light of Meaning for our Chaos Res. If you do not have a Light of Meaning with Chaos Resistance on it, you can just get some more Chaos Res on your gear as needed. But this is a nice solution to Chaos Res. And then we are going to want to make sure that we have at least one jewel with Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted, and some other useful stats on it. Now, mid-budget skills are almost identical to the low-budget skills. We do not need a Hydrosphere in here. You'll be running Vol Smite and Ice Bite again Vol Smite for damage. We won't need Ice Bite any longer because we have elemental weapons, which give us large ranges on the cold and the fire here. On your Cyclone, we run Trinity, Fortify, Infused Chanting, and then Volatility or Elemental Damage with attacks, and increased critical damage as long as you do have a good critical strike chance rate. Now, we're getting a lot of our critical strike chance by having a large cold hit damage, hitting a medium-sized brittle on the target, and getting brittle through interrogation. Interrogation is what allows us to get scorched, brittle, and sapped on the target instead of chill, freeze, and shock. And then our skitter bots are what are providing the chill and the shock on the target. And so that's how you're going to scale all of your damage for the mid-budget. Mid-budget gets you up to about 31 million DPS at the top end of the mid-budget. Once you're done with mid-budget, you'll move over to high-budget on the build, and a lot of these are just better versions of items that you had before. You'll be looking for Winter Weaves to double corrupt, Tamings to double corrupt. You'll want to get a Corruption on an Archon's Tools belt. You'll want to get some Temple Gloves. You'll want to have a very, very good Tri-Ellie sword. You'll want to get a shield that is going to be a synthesized Recover Life and Block shield, and then roll on some nice mods on it. And so these are all just better than what you had on the previous build. We also add in a second large cluster jewel, which gives us access to Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh. This gives us access to More Than Skill, which is 87% chance to block and spell block, and combine that with our life recovery shield gives us a tremendous amount of EHP on the build and makes it much more tanky, especially in situations where you're surrounded by a tremendous amount of creatures. And so this will take you from early to mid to high budget on the build with good damage, good survivability. If you have any questions on this build, come by Twitch, drop a comment down below. I'm happy to help. Thank y'all very much for watching. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, drop a comment down below. As a reminder, I'm happy to offer one-on-one support for any of my builds. Just come by Twitch during any live stream time. Thank you very much. Peace.